last Wednesday, I posted a photograph to my podcast Facebook page announcing that a new episode had been released. After my short holiday hiatus, I was back in the saddle and I had released a new episode. And that photograph received 11 likes. Thank you very kindly. And then on Sunday last, I posted up a photograph of pancakes. And the pancake photograph received 13 likes. And so, from those statistics, I can deduce that given the choice between me doing this podcast, into which I have poured my heart and soul for almost 7 damn years, given the choice between that and me producing content about pancakes, more of you are interested in the content about pancakes. And I don't know how to feel about that. You're more interested in pancakes than you are in these podcast episodes. So it seems what you want from me is pancakes. And so to quote Mayor Quimby from The Simpsons, if that is the way the winds are blowing, let no one say that I don't also blow. And so I humbly present to you, on this episode of Semi-Eloquent, pancakes. I'm serious. I'm going to talk about pancakes. I discovered a couple of really interesting things in looking into pancakes. First of all, I discovered that almost every country, almost every region, almost every culture on the planet has some version of a pancake. A simple pan-fried piece of dough made with flour, eggs, butter, whatever. It exists culturally all over the world. Everybody has come up with some version of this, and I suspect it's because everybody has some version of poor people. I think pancakes or versions of food like that, simple, cheap ingredients that you fry up, I think that's been a staple of low-income houses and households for time immemorial. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. Pancakes are friggin' delicious. But I was surprised to find how much regional cultural variation there is on pancakes. If you go look this up, it just goes on forever. Every little country, every little area has its own version of pancakes. They do different things with pancakes. And I was surprised to see that. This is a global phenomenon. We all have our own little twist on it, whether it's what we recognize in North America as a pancake, that kind of big fluffy thing. In the UK, they have like an unleavened version, which is a lot thinner. There's crepes. And then if you go to Africa, they have their own version of it, which is used like a bread to scoop up meat and whatever and eat it. I've done that at an Ethiopian restaurant. This phenomenon exists around the world. Pancakes, who knew? The other thing that I discovered is that pancakes are ancient. The ancient Greeks had a version of pancakes. The Romans had a version of pancakes. The actual word pancake in English begins to appear in Old English vernacular in the 1400s. So these things have been around for a long damn time. They are ancient. In fact, they're more ancient than any of us might have guessed. And that was suggested when the body of Otzi the Iceman was discovered. And you're thinking, what the hell is Otzi the Iceman? Well, I'll tell you, okay? So back in 1991, a couple of hikers, a couple of tourists were wandering through the Alps, the Austrian Alps, what's called the Otzi Alps between Austria and Italy back in 1991. And they happened upon a body emerging from the ice in that part of the mountains. Incidentally, one of the worst places a fella could be during the First World War is in those mountains between Italy and Austria, where horrendous battles were fought at altitude, alpine warfare. If you can imagine digging in and fighting in that freezing weather for years and years and years. Bloody awful. And so they still uncover bodies of fallen soldiers in those Alps all the time. The ice recedes and they find them, or people go into a little nook or cranny that has not been explored recently, and they find the bodies of soldiers. And so these people are walking in 1991 and they find a body, just not all that unusual to find, whether that's soldiers, whether that's mountaineers that have been lost or fallen or injured, whatever. Not all that uncommon, actually, to find bodies when you're walking around in that part of the mountains. And so they find this body and they think, well, we've found a mountaineer who's fallen on a bit of hard luck in the mountain. And so they call the authorities, and the authorities come and they take a closer look and they're like, I don't think this is a mountaineer, man. And as they begin to excavate this body, I think the body was kind of half trapped still in the ice. There was part of it showing, an arm or something like that. They begin to excavate and exhume this body from the ice, and they realize he's wearing Copper Age clothing. He's got Copper Age materials around him. They're finding them in the ice, his tools, his implements, bow and arrow, an axe with a copper head on it. Very unusual. They're like, we got something that is not a mountaineer, at least not a modern one. And so they get the body out and they take it and they begin to examine it. And they realize, partly due to the artifacts, partly due to whatever dating they can do, that we have here a body from 5,000 years ago. And they called him Otzi because they found him in the Otzi Alps. So they called this guy Otzi the Iceman because they found him there and they found him in the ice. As the ice was receding, God knows, I mean, the ice will continue to recede and reveal more things. But they got this body, and what's interesting to me about the Otzi the Iceman story is a couple things, because it's a dramatic story. All right, they've discovered that Otzi had wounds on him. They've done all of this testing on him, and over the years, this is 1991, they got 30 plus years of new technology to work with, better scans, whatever, better stuff to work with, and they continue to look at this body and try to figure stuff out. But at a certain point, they realized Otzi had an arrowhead lodged in his shoulder and wounds on his head, and he had a cut on his hand. And so speculation began. What happened to this guy? And they found him face down with an arrowhead buried in his shoulder and a cut on his hand and these wounds on his head. And there's been speculation ever since they found him about what the story is. You know, people wondered if he had just been attacked by marauders going through the mountain pass, or if he had been fleeing an enemy that found him. It was initially thought that the arrow in the shoulder killed him, like it had nicked an artery and he had bled out very quickly, and that was the sad fate of Otzi the Iceman. Then later on, people looked at the wound again. They had better tools, better forensics. They're like, no, we don't think the arrowhead actually hit anything. He may have bled a little bit, and it probably bloody hurt, but we don't think he bled out from it. And then they looked and they realized he's got these kind of what looks like blunt instrument trauma on his head. So did somebody shoot him? And then he ran into the mountains to get away. And then they found him and they clobbered him over the head. Is that what happened? Or did he get shot in the shoulder and fall from somewhere, and that's how he got the trauma on his head? And there's been all of this speculation about what happened to Otzi the Iceman. What interests me about the story is not so much the quite literal cold case murder story, but just the amazing stuff that they can deduce about this guy and his life from forensics. It's really stunning. Like, they can picture the easy stuff, right? They figured out he's about 5'3", weighed about 110 pounds, somewhere between 40 and 50 years old. Okay, that's not all that difficult to figure out. But then they can do scans on him, and they realized that he was arthritic, that his hips, ankles, knees were a problem, which suggested that he spent a lot of his time walking, did a lot of walking in hilly terrain. Suggestion was maybe he was like an alpine shepherd, something like that. He had this unusual wear and tear on his joints. And then they were able to deduce that he had died in late spring, early summer. The reason being they could examine the contents of his stomach, which were preserved, and they know that he ate for his last meal some ibex meat and some berries and whatever, and that 8 hours before that, he had had another meal of some sort of deer meat and some bread, which is going to matter in a minute. And the pollen that they found in his digestive tract suggested that he had eaten this food at a certain altitude, which was lower than where they found him, somewhere down in the forest. And the pollen being present suggested that it was such and such time of year when such and such pollen is bioavailable. And I'm like, what? And then they went through and they DNA'd his hair, and they found certain traces of minerals or whatever. And then he had on his fingernail 3 what are called Bowes lines, Beau''S. And I don't really know what a Bowes line is, but when you have certain types of sickness, it actually shows up in your fingernails. So they could deduce he had these 3 lines on his fingernails that within the past 6 months, Otzi had been ill 3 times because he had 3 of these lines. And maybe it takes 6 months or something like that for your fingernails to grow out and for those things to be gone. And I was just amazed reading about all the stuff that they could find out about a fella who had been dead since before the pyramids were raised, dead since before Stonehenge was created. This guy's been dead 5,000 years. They dated him at somewhere around 3275 BC as a birth date, 3230 as a death date, and he's just been frozen in the ice. And they can actually get in and see what's in his stomach and know, therefore, where he was and when he was. And they discovered, because he was eating bread, that he, probably came from a civilized community where they had adopted farming. But they found him with the copper axe head. They found that his lungs were blackened. So that's okay. He's a guy who sits around a lot of fires. Or maybe he was involved in copper work, copper smelting, because this copper axe head was a very rare and valuable thing. And he had bows and arrows, and he had a pack with various herbs in it, stuff for lighting fires, so probably a very experienced outdoorsman. And they're piecing together all the clues of this guy's life. And then, of course, they could do eventually DNA testing on it, finding out his origin, finding out whatever. And I just found the whole thing bloody fascinating. I had never considered becoming an archaeologist or some sort of forensic archaeologist, but I'm like, this is pretty cool, man. And they're able to figure out stuff about this guy's life that it never even would have occurred to me that you could figure out. But why I talk about Otzi the Iceman is because the suggestion is one of the things they found in his digestive tract was kind of a pancake. Believe it or not, this bread that he had eaten was akin to a pancake. And so Otzi the Iceman, who died 5,000 years ago, even his culture, which had settled down enough to adopt farming and milling wheat and whatever, and creating bread, creating what appeared to be pancakes over 5,000 years ago. This is a fascinating story. If you want to spend 15 interesting minutes, go on YouTube and just look at a couple of videos about Otzi the Iceman, because the speculation about his story continues to change as we have new gear and new ways to look at what they have with the body, which is still intact. It's in Europe in a university somewhere or a museum. And they continue to do testing on this thing because he is the rare specimen of a Copper Age man. We don't have those that are intact, but we will. I mean, as ice continues to recede, thanks to global warming around the world, more stuff is going to be revealed in mountains and places like that. But a fascinating story, and of course it's a complete mystery, right? It could only be that a body is revealed that has an arrowhead in the back shoulder, no other suggestion of what happened, and then this ancient kind of murder mystery begins to unfold. Point is, even Otzi the Iceman seemed to have been eating pancakes 5,000 years ago. Now, our association with pancakes is, of course, Shrove Tuesday around here. Shrove Tuesday, Pancake Tuesday. The day when we all sit down and eat a whole load of pancakes, and a lot of us don't know why. A lot of us who did not grow up in the Roman Catholic Church, a lot of us who did not grow up in more Orthodox churches that observe at least a version of Lent, don't really get it. We just know for some reason it's Pancake Tuesday. And I'm delighted that I grew up Protestant evangelical. There's a lot of cuckoo stuff with that, but we didn't have to observe Lent, which is really important. Lent is a traditional observation in the Roman Catholic Church whereby for 40 days you are supposed to enter into this period of self-denial, asceticism, self-reflection, purification leading up to Easter, which is the great symbolic rebirth, right? When Christ was crucified and then rose again. Now, in the story of Jesus, he spent 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness being tempted by Satan. It was a purification of his own where he went into the dark night by himself and he fasted and he denied himself and he tried to commune with God. And that was this moment where Satan comes to him and tempts him with all of the riches in the world, dominion over the world, everything he could ever want, to not go through with the crucifixion ritual, which would set everybody free. And so Moses had a similar temptation. Elijah, maybe the prophet, a similar 40-day period of being tempted by Satan, a period of spiritual tempering and purification. And so Lent, as I understand it, is an observance of Christ's 40 days and 40 nights of temptation leading up to the crucifixion. Nowadays, and for hundreds and hundreds of years, this has been the observation of Lent. And so for 40 days, we deny ourselves. My former spouse or significant other grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, and part of their tradition was you give up something for Lent. Now, I volunteered. I had sympathy spirituality throughout the course of our marriage. If she was observing Lent, I would agree to give up smoking, for example. Happy to give up cigarettes for 40 days and 40 nights. I would give up throwing dead batteries into the river. I was trying my best to have a spiritual connection to what my partner was doing. I think that's important in a relationship. We never had to do Lent. It wasn't one of our things. We didn't do those rituals. The idea is Jesus went into the wilderness for a spiritual purification, for a spiritual preparation for this great birth, this great rebirth. And part of that process was fasting. Part of it was self-denial. And so the tradition of Lent, one of the things that you were supposed to do was deny yourself a lot of things. So you would deny yourself dairy products. You would deny yourself meat. You would adopt fasting. You would enter into this period of spiritual contemplation, spiritual asceticism, which is self-denial, some self-flagellation. Go look at my episode from a while ago, maybe a couple years ago, Go Flagellate Yourself, which is about this idea of mortification of the flesh, which was about wounding yourself to mimic the wounding that Christ went through as a way of becoming closer to Christ and identifying more closely with the experience of Christ. Well, Lent is kind of that, this period of self-denial. And so, like all good humans, though, one of the things you give yourself before a dose of self-denial is a good, hearty helping of going crazy. And that is Shrove Tuesday or Pancake Tuesday. That's Mardi Gras, kids. We are going to go off before we go into this period of asceticism, this period of self-denial, this period of self-flagellation as the Christ. There was a practical side to this, though, okay? Because back in the day, particularly before refrigeration, you knew you weren't allowed to eat all these products, right? Your butter, your eggs, some of your flour, some of your dairy products. Not allowed to eat them during Lent, but we got them stored up. Better use them. And the only way to use them, and so not lose or waste them, one of the best ways was to make pancakes. And so people would take up all this stuff that they had to use up because they couldn't have it during Lent, and they would make a bunch of pancakes, and that would be what you ate on Shrove Tuesday. Shrove being derived from the word shrive, which was absolution after confession. So the idea was also that during what fundamentally became Shrove Week is one of the things you would do for this, as preparation for this period of spiritual asceticism, was you would go and you would have a big old dose of confession. And I'm beginning to understand, the more I get to know you filthy animals, why it's not just one Shrove Day. All of you guys need a Shrove Week to get all those sins of yours confessed out there, you know? And so you would have this period of Shrove Sunday, Shrove, whatever it is, leading up to Shrove Tuesday. And then Shrove Tuesday, Pancake Tuesday, Madry Grass is the big last hurrah, right? And so you have a big kind of bash, you do your confessions, you eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, all the pancakes you can cram into your belly, use up all your stocks of butter, whatever, lard, dairy, use them all up so they don't go to waste. And then the morning after, Lent begins, and it's 40 days and 40 nights of self-denial. 40 days and 40 nights of self-assessment, of spiritual inquiry, of spiritual observance. And that purifies you. And then you come to Easter, and having gone through this period of self-reflection, spiritual growth, self-denial, asceticism as Jesus in the wilderness, denying himself and being tempted, then you rise up on Easter Sunday and you are rising to a new life, a rebirth, right? Springtime, Jesus rises again. We all rise with him after having gone through this period of purification. None of that means much to me. I do enjoy the pancakes. Now, I have adopted pancakes as part of my own kind of purification ritual. I now do 3 or 4 times a year, I do my own little pancake ritual. That started in the Christmas of 2024. That was the first Christmas, I'm pretty sure, that I've ever spent alone in my life. Now, my spouse or significant other and I had separated, amicably, still living together in our house, but distinctly separated. By Christmas, it had been a few months that was public. All right, people were getting used to the idea. She had gone away to a sister's place for Christmas, and I woke up on Christmas morning, which is a heavy one, by the way. A lot of people, if they are newly separated, really feel that on Christmas. Now, they wake up alone on that special day, or they wake up without their kids on that special day for the first time. And the weight of it all, the realization, the reality, the truth of it all kind of lands on them. And a lot of people really struggle on those holidays, especially the first time around. First go can be a rough one. I was determined for that not to be the case. And so Christmas morning of 2024, I woke up, I made some Boss coffee, I put on Handel's Messiah on the CBC, and I made some pancakes. It became, in a sense, kind of a celebration of my own, kind of a ritual of my own to observe this new single life and infuse it with my own symbolism, infuse it with my own enthusiasm, infuse it with my own rituals and traditions, and one of which is on special days, holidays, when I'm alone, part of my single ritual is to make the pancakes, to indulge that, right? To do that thing that I enjoy and eat those things that I enjoy and make that a special observance. It became, in effect, a spiritual thing, and I've done it a few times now. When I have a Sunday or a holiday and I'm on my own, I'm going to get up and I'm going to make the pancakes. And what it is a reassurance. It's a reassurance that I can build a new life. It's a reassurance that I can rely on myself. It's a reassurance that I can build new meaning into a life that has fundamentally changed. I no longer have a partner. I am single. That doesn't have to be the end of the world. That can be the beginning of a wonderful new world. And so the pancake ritual became part of that for me. And I'm pretty damn good at making pancakes. If you saw the photograph, you know that I can make a nice little stack. All right, I'm getting my own kind of method down to it. Now, it's got to be pancakes because I'm not a good enough cook to make anything more elaborate than that. But why would you want to? All right, pancakes are friggin' delicious. And I have made pancakes part of my single guy ritual. And I recommend that to people. You find yourself suddenly single or newly single, and I think you need to build rituals into your new life, right? Things that are just yours, things that you do to anchor yourself. That can be a wide variety of things. In my case, I made pancakes part of my single guy ritual. And last Sunday was not necessarily a holiday or a special day that I was waking up to, but last Saturday night, I attended a ghost ritual in Toronto, my fourth ghost ritual and my second on the Scaletta tour. Go back and listen to my Johannes Does Berlin 1 and 2 episodes from last spring when I went to Berlin to see Ghost on my own, another solo ritual. I went down to Toronto last Saturday night with my pal John Young, drummer extraordinaire, and we saw Ghost again on the Scaletta tour, and it was friggin' fantastic. But that is a ritual. Ghost shows are referred to as rituals. And so normally I play pickleball Sunday mornings with a really fun group of people. But I knew that I was going to be getting home from the Ghost show very, very late. And that would make Sunday morning pickleball very, very difficult. And so I got somebody to sub for me, which meant that I could wake up on Sunday morning, could sleep in, I could catch up a little bit. It was still rough, but I woke up Sunday morning, just attended a ritual, and a ghost show really does feel like that. It is shrouded with the whole ghost ethos of the Satanic Church, which really is reminiscent of the Roman Catholic Church. And it begins, the pre-show music is choral, it's very Catholic, and that element runs through the entire damn show, which is fantastic, by the way. Go catch Ghost on this tour if you can. The really highest level they're playing at. I keep saying this and I mean it. This band is such an accomplishment. Musically, visually, the whole damn thing, the lore that goes with it, how funny it is at the same time. Such an accomplishment Ghost is. And Papa talked about Papa Perpetua, the current frontman of the band, talked about how Ghost played their first show in Toronto in 2012 at the friggin' Mod Club. I saw Jose Gonzalez at the Mod Club many, many, many years ago. Just one man and his classical guitar. And I leaned on the stage front and center. What would I give now to have leaned on the stage front and center at Ghost at the Mod Club in 2012? Because you go look at, they're just starting in those days. And even in the early days, club shows, playing to a couple hundred people. They're in the full regalia. I mean, the costumes have gotten more elaborate and better, but they're in the full regalia, the full lore. The whole thing is happening 14 years ago, playing tiny clubs like the Mod Club all over the world. The full Ghost vision has not been realized, but the seeds are there. The foundation is there. And then you fast forward 14 years of putting out records, of touring, of doing the grind. 14 years later, they're headlining what I still refer to as the ACC, which is, it's a 18,000 seat arena. For the show, it probably holds, 12,000. Pretty close to sold out. So figured 10,000 people at an arena show. And that's the game, kids. I mean, it still kind of works that way. You start off playing a little club in your hometown. You branch out, you put out some records, you catch a couple breaks along the way. And then if you get damn lucky, your song Square Hammer blows up. And all of a sudden the band is catapulted to, they had been playing big festivals and that sort of thing. But then they got like tours opening for Iron Maiden, tours opening stadiums for Metallica, couple more big radio songs. All of a sudden you go from having headlined the Mod Club in 2012 to 2026 headlining the ACC. And what a fun thing to look at. And then I've seen footage of their early club shows, but then you jump ahead to the stage design, the set. They have these huge digital screens behind them, which this is my fourth show. I saw them the first time maybe 8 years ago at the Sony Center. That's like a 2,000 seater. You just watch the progression. Then I saw them at Ricoh Coliseum, which is like probably an 8,000 seater. And then at the ACC, which is 10 or 12, watching the progression happen, but watching the set become more elaborate. And then reaching this point now where they've got the huge digital screens, they got the custom lighting rig with the Ghost logo, which is this huge lighting rig that extends kind of from the back of the drum riser out to the front of the stage. Really, really cool. And they were doing some wild stuff on those screens. Musically note perfect. And they're all so good that there's a moment early in the show where the rhythm guitar player has the spotlight all to himself, and he stands in the middle of the stage where Papa would normally be, and he's just doing the pump up the crowd thing, right? So he's pointing at one section of the room and doing the hand gesture so people cheer, and everybody goes nuts, and then he silences them, and then a dramatic point to the other side, and this goes on for 3, 4, 5 minutes. The consummate showman, and he's the rhythm guitar player. You know what I mean? This is the level these folks are working at. The show is funny. The show is intense. Visually, it's staggering. Musically, it's staggering. My only complaint really is that arena shows just tend not to sound that great. Really, really tough to mix an arena. And if you're not sitting in just the right spot, which is usually going to be kind of front and center at somewhere near the sound booth maybe. I wasn't. We were in the 100 level to stage right. If that was a Leafs game, that's like $1,000 ticket. And can you imagine? I was so pleased for the arena. I was so delighted for the Scotiabank Center that some real entertainment was actually performing there for a change. You know what I mean? I was looking up, my regret. It's a no cameras show, right? It's a no phones show. So you walk in, you show them your ticket, then they put your phone in a pouch and lock it, and you put your phone in your pocket and off you go. And then they unlock it later. So no photographs, right? I can't show you any visuals apart from what Ghost has released, and they're stunning. I got none of my own. I got no videos of my own. But what I was really sad about was that I couldn't take a photograph of that lonely 1967 Stanley Cup banner up there and share it with a few people. You go to the Bell Center in Montreal, the whole ceiling is red. The whole ceiling is red with Stanley Cup banners and retired numbers. That's the place. And I almost went to Montreal. I considered it. The Ghost had announced back-to-back nights, Friday in Montreal, Saturday in Toronto, and I thought, do I want to hop on the Via and go to Montreal for the weekend and see that show? I was tempted, but had to remember the finances of it all. Do take the GO train in, though, kids. I will die on this hill. Do not drive downtown Toronto. Leave your car, get on the GO train. $10 weekend pass. Can't beat it. You're going to pay way more than that just to park down there, and you don't have the hassle of driving in. GO train in. The only time you don't is when you've got a gig and you got to take your friggin' drums and you can't take them on the GO train. GO show is fantastic. Loved it. Loved the set list. Loved the performance. Loved the visuals. It was pretty much the same show that I saw in Berlin. Worth seeing twice. The only difference is I didn't get to hang out with ghost truck drivers in Toronto like I did in Berlin. Go listen to the Johannes Does Berlin episodes to hear all about that. Fantastic then, fantastic now. And Ghost has said, Tobias has said, he's not sure what comes next for the band. It sounds like there's going to be pretty substantial hiatus maybe after this tour is over. So catch them now. Catch them now while you can. Killer players all. Killer costumes in the crowd and on the stage. Killer visuals. Just a really fantastic show. And lots of kids too, by the way. Ghost, for being this sort of tongue-in-cheek satanic church, is actually pretty kid-friendly. A lot of F-bombs, whatever. Kids get that at school. Just a great show. Just a really terrific show, and I'm glad I went. It's always dicey booking anything in January, February around here. I don't like to book out-of-town shows when the weather is always such a risk. Similarly, out-of-town events, but hey, Johnny Young wanted to go. It's his first ghost ritual, and I'm like, I'm not going to let you down, bro. Everybody's got to see the ghosts. And so I did that, and it is, their first live album, I think, was called Ceremony and Devotion. That's how they frame it, as a ritual. And so while I did not have a holiday to observe on Sunday morning, I canceled my pickleball, or at least found a sub, and woke up as a single guy having attended a ritual the night before, and so made pancakes. And that is part of my single guy thing. That is part of my single guy tradition now, my single guy ethos, to make pancakes as a way of dealing with those moments when you're alone that you would normally be with a partner or normally be with the family. That can be really, really difficult. But one of the ways to mitigate that is to make a ritual out of it and make something that's comforting and make something that's fun and make something that is a thing that you do on those days, which makes them special again. And the pancakes were damn good. Stack was delightful. And you guys are more interested in that than in my podcast. And that hurts, kids. I gotta be honest, it hurts a little that you're more excited about my pancakes than you are about my podcast episodes. But I'm gonna have to take that in stride, One of the things as a creator is that you have to develop a thick skin. And so all of you telling me you're far more interested in pancakes than you are in the content of these episodes hurts, but I can handle it. But I can also read the room, man. And it was very evident that you guys wanted pancake content. And so I give you pancake content and Otzi the Iceman and self-flagellation and the rituals of Lent. What more could you ask for in a podcast than a little history, a little spirituality, and a little friggin' rock and roll? This is me beginning to ramble now, which means it's time to clip this thing. I want to thank you for liking my pancake photographs. I think I should probably just start a whole Instagram account that is just pancakes, just as an experiment. How far can I get with just pancakes? Probably further than I get as a podcaster, and that hurts. But if I can bank a little bit of that, it would friggin' help, you know what I mean? I hope you're well. I hope you're getting through. I feel like Otzi the Iceman myself. January has been friggin' frigid. I'm tired of it. I've had enough winter. Thank you very kindly. You don't need me to do another diatribe about that. I hope you're keeping warm. I hope you are well. I have begun listening to new music again with the idea that maybe I'll talk about some of it, but nothing's really caught my ears to this point. I do have a couple of concerts coming up in the spring that will be worth talking about. I'm not going to spill the tea on that just yet. But I hope you're doing well. And I hope you're getting through this winter, and I hope life is working for you. Please do drop me a line. I haven't heard from anybody in a while. I hope somebody's out there listening. Drop me a line. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know if you have questions, if there's stuff that you think it would be fun for me to attempt to talk about on here. The world's a friggin' madhouse, man. There's more insane, disgraceful chaos happening all the friggin' time. And I've talked about how I don't want to be political on this program. I like to provide some positive talk. I like to provide a little bit of a distraction from the chaos of the world. If there's stuff you think I should tackle, though, drop me a line and perhaps I will attempt to do so. This is a two-way street, kids. I do the talking publicly, but it is part of a conversation. So please do drop me a line. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know if you're enjoying these episodes. Let me know if there's music I should listen to, TV I should watch, whatever. Just stay in touch, and ratings and reviews are always most welcome, man. I'm fighting an uphill battle. They gave out the first ever, Golden Globe for podcasts, something like that. Won, of course, by a celebrity. This is what I'm up against. This is what all of us indie podcasters are up against. This influx of big-moneyed celebrity podcasting that really kind of started during the pandemic. We're all up against it. So for any of us to get heard takes kind of a miracle. And your ratings and reviews do apparently help algorithmically to get my show put in front of people. So you can do me a solid, man, if you take 5 seconds and drop a 5-star on Apple, or if you take 2 minutes and drop a review on Apple, on Spotify, or just tell your friggin' friends. I appreciate everybody who has tried to spread the word. I do have new merch, john-huff.com/shop. This podcast actually costs me a substantially increasing amount of money to produce. And since I canceled my Patreon, it pays me back $0. So a merch purchase would help. I may bring back the Patreon. We'll see. But I do appreciate you listening. I do appreciate you supporting. Go make yourself some damn pancakes and put on Ghost while you do it. Thank you for listening. I will be back next week with something. And do stay warm.